Thank you so much for those powerful words and for having the courage to be the voice of the voiceless. It's so important for us to hear those words because we have to keep this from happening again, and we have to remember what happened. I'm going to say just a couple of words on behalf of the Advocates for Human Rights. The Advocates for Human Rights is a nonprofit organization that's based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and we're dedicated to the promotion of internationally recognized human rights. Since the tragedy in Gujarat in 2002, Advocates for Human Rights has been concerned and has been working to address India's failure to comply with international human rights obligations to protect members of minority groups, in particular Muslims, Christians, and other religious minorities. Recently, we've been doing a lot of work with several other groups in the United States and in India to draw these local issues to the attention of the international community. And so we've been working to file submissions with the United Nations Human Rights Council, for example. And in May, I had the opportunity to participate in the Human Rights Council session where India was reviewed. And one thing that I would like to stress is we've been talking a lot about the tragedy in Gujarat, but discrimination and persecution of religious minorities is continuing and expanding in a systematic way. Some of the major human rights challenges today include extrajudicial executions committed by security personnel, as well as security personnel looking the other way when non-state actors commit human rights violations. Arbitrary and unlawful detentions and torture in police custody, harassment of human rights defenders, whistleblowers, especially in some cases where people have given information about in trials of perpetrators in the Gujarat situation. Whistleblowers, journalists, and witnesses to human rights violations have all been harassed. Additionally, in our Human Rights Council submission, the Advocates for Human Rights highlighted the failure of the Indian government to adequately investigate and effectively prosecute perpetrators of human rights violations. We have made specific recommendations urging India to strengthen legislation facilitating prosecutions and increase accountability of its security forces, and to implement effective measures to address issues of systematic religious bias and discrimination against religious minorities. At the Human Rights Council in May, the United States delegate, who is a member of the U.S. Department of State, the U.S. delegate called for an end to impunity for security forces accused of committing human rights violations in India. And so this stance of maintaining the ban on the visa for Mr. Modi is consistent with that State Department stance. I'll just conclude by saying that reminding everyone that the United States is a nation which was founded on human rights principles, including religious freedom. The State Department was right to deny Mr. Modi's U.S. visa in 2005 under the authority of the International Religious Freedom Act, and should do so again. No one, no matter their position in government, who has participated in human rights violations should be legitimized with a grant of a visa to enter the United States. The Advocates for Human Rights commends and joins in the request of the members of Congress who have called upon the Department of State to maintain the ban on a visa for Mr. Narendra Modi to enter the United States. So next we'll hear from Dr. Haider Khan, who is representing the Coalition Against Genocide. And then after that, we'll just have a couple of very brief statements, and then we'll take questions.